Hello people, Soulsborne Fanatic here. Don't take my head just yet. You read the title, you may be angry, but I'm here today to possibly simp for Malenia, but in an objective manner, I promise. Malenia is probably the most polarizing boss ever made by From Software, and seen as the most difficult boss to beat solo. As you may know, if you have watched my previous videos on Elden Ring, or even just Soulsborne bosses in general, I quite like Malenia. And not just because she's hot, but comically misunderstood. And in my opinion, is the best boss ever made. Not just Souls. To some that may be a very inflammatory fact, but I'm here to show you why I think that and why Malenia isn't what she thinks she is. Malenia has three aliases, I believe. You got Malenia the Severed, One-Armed Valkyrie, and the one most people are familiar with.
I am Malenia, Blade of Miquella.
This may inflict PMSD, and if so, I'm not apologizing. Regardless, you get to know this boss like a good friend you've known for years. Or a bully, rather, because she's going to kill you over and over. And that appears to be where the root of the frustration lies, which is apparent, yet it comes off as unfair and unbalanced. Which I'm not here to argue that, because who really cares? Just to argue that she's a good boss because of those mechanics. She's not your typical boss, often drawing comparisons to an unused Sekiro boss, which I doubt and is quite disrespectful to associate this fantastic boss with Neo 3, as she is much more nuanced than you would think. Let's go ahead and break down her moveset. So, Malenia has got a few tricks up her sleeves, with Waterfowl Dance and stuff, all the stuff in her second phase, but for now let's focus just on phase 1, and I'll also get to Waterfowl in a moment. Malenia fights like what you would expect from a swordswoman master, with a regular 1-2 combo. Sometimes a third, or she jumps away because she's quite evasive in her first phase. When you are farther away, she can do one of 3 attacks. One of them which she jumps at you and does a regular slice. A charged up attack where she dashes at you, which can lead to a heavy punish, or another one where she kind of crouches down and does a charged up attack. She has one attack where she points her sword diagonal and does a critical, you hear the chink and it does a critical attack. And lastly there's a 3 slash combo which goes into a 4th attack, which is quite easy to dodge, easy to dodge into her. It has a heavy punch. She can do this move after an attack, or she can do this leading into another attack. It has quite a lot of variety. She also has a kick attack which you can very heavily punish that attack. She has an attack where she jumps, flashes, and does a downwards hit, which, again, heavy punish. Besides that, I think I've broken down either all or most of her attacks. Besides Waterfowl, she does some slashes after attacks, but I think that's about it. Alright, now to talk about the Malenia in the room. Waterfowl Dance. This is a move that was incorporated to throw a wild card into her otherwise typical and well choreographed moveset. That is relatively easy to learn and dodge. This move is the one that everyone is upset about. On top of this, did I forget to mention that she heals a fraction of her health every hit she does. This is an amazing mechanic, in which it counters almost every player's build. Use summons. Unfortunately, for you, she now has free health in front of her. This encourages the player to take as little hits as possible, or if any at all. These two mechanics work together brilliantly to make an incredibly difficult challenge. It's kind of like Midir in Dark Souls 3, to where if you use the summon, you're worse off than you would be fighting him solo, because he has a whole bunch of health and the summon can't really get attacks in. In Elden Ring, Malenia works as using a summon is giving her free health essentially, which would make you want to not use summons, which I think is a really good mechanic, because this game, it seems to encourage you to use summons on a lot of these bosses. The Godskin duo, the Valkyrie duo. It's really just, I think that's a really good mechanic, honestly. The boss was entirely designed for one-on-one fights, because you can see that in her first phase. She fights like she would on a 1v1 fight. It's not necessarily meant to be used summons. Not that you can't use summons. That's how it was designed, I believe. Now, this move is overwhelming for many because it's seen as impossible to dodge or requires a high amount of skill. I disagree entirely. There are so many ways to dodge this move that you wouldn't even believe. You can use summons to take the hits. Shield, Art of War, heals through shift damage though. Blood the Pound Step, which even with a nerf is still ideal. Or using a light load, which makes dodging a lot easier. There are even Ashes of War, which gives you iframe to the first flurry of attacks, which would allow you to dodge the next 2 flurries a lot easier. You can run away from the attack through the first 2 flurries if you're far away enough, and then roll through the final flurry. So someone telling me that it's too hard or just impossible, you're lying to yourself. It's not impossible. It is very doable. It's difficult, sure, but I don't think they're wrong for putting this move in the game. I think it's a really good mechanic, and removing this move would make the boss fight worse, not better. And it being unfair or possibly unbalanced really fits into the theme and the core gameplay of Elden Ring. It's like a skill check, if you will, of utilizing everything that you have, because this is an end game boss. This is something that you should probably do after Radagon, realistically, because Malenia has quite the high health pool, and Malenia is not meant to be an easy boss or a pushover. You shouldn't expect to beat a boss like this within like the first couple or like 10 attempts. Sure, people have, but that's because of all the methods that they used from their arsenal of cheesing methods that probably weren't intended by the developers in the first place. Now, that's just how I see it. That's an entire argument for another video, but someone's gonna, I already know what they're gonna say to that is that it was put in the game so it was intended. No, just because it's in the game does not mean that it was 100% intended. Why do you think they nerfed certain items and buffed certain items? Not everything that was put into the game was 100% intended by the developers. They have these interpretations of what it should be when the player plays the game, and sometimes their vision isn't what it should have been, and that's why they make changes and alterations. They do these with weapons, bosses, just about anything in the game, to get it to the ideal state of what they intended. I am inclined to believe that bosses more so than anything else, because they are much more time in development has to be spent on bosses, because you got to do all the cutscenes and the movesets, models. I'm not a video game dev expert, but to me at least, that's how I interpret it. Moving forward, now I want to discuss the second phase, Malenia, the Goddess of Rot.
The scarlet bloom flowers once more. You will witness true horror.
I already have. Kinda hot, not gonna lie. The Rot Goddess's first move of Phase 2 is to fly into the air, burst into a scarlet alien Death Flower that inflicts heavy scarlet rot onto any unsuspecting victims who just entered the second phase and don't know what to do. Although even so, it's not hard to dodge, even if it is your first time seeing it. Clearly, in the brain, you're supposed to run as far away as possible from the Death Flower. This is my favorite cutscene transition into the second phase, right beside Gale. As you may have noticed, Malenia is 10 times more aggressive. You can see her chasing me, wanting to kill me desperately, because she had to cheat death once again, like she did for Dawn, because she's a coward. Malenia's second phase is much harder than the first, in my humble opinion. She now does rock damage on almost every other attack. She gets a scary rock clone, shadow clone jutsu combo. That's a 6-hit combo. To avoid that move in particular, you just want to run away if you can. Or, if you really want to, you can just keep dodge rolling. Even the waterfowl dance gets a boost with Scarlet Rot added to every hit it does. This boss is no joke, and you're going to get the message one way or another. A lot of her moves are mostly the same, but some added to it for flavor and new ones entirely. After every slam attack or tornado of Scarlet Rot follows you after, and it's beautiful, yet terrifying. Just as before, her poise is extremely low, and you can break her posture really quickly and get some heavy attacks in. It's honestly a shame that we couldn't reason with Malenia to tell her that Moog, we know where Moog is at, and her brother Miquella. But you just gotta take what you learned from the first phase, learn the Scarlet Aeonia move, just run away from it. The Shadow Clone Jutsu move, run away from it. Waterfowl. You already know all the other methods. There's even videos on YouTube giving multiple different ways to avoid this move. Malenia's, it's not a hard boss, it's a boss of determination. You just gotta keep on going at it. You can't give up. Fear, and you can't get hit by waterfowl, because that will kill you really quickly. And the reward that you will get from finally overcoming this immense challenge is the satisfaction to saying, I did that. I beat the boss my way. And that is what this game and what this series is all about, baby. This was meant to defend Malenia and kind of a breakdown of her moves and disregarding and giving a counter argument to all the slander that Malenia gets. I get it that she nuked the whole continent, but she's a girl boss, okay? And I think years down the line, people will agree with me, or maybe even be less harsh on Malenia. That's all for me. I hope I made everyone angry with me liking Malenia and me defending Malenia, because there's not many videos of this defending Malenia. I looked up and I didn't see a single one. So I thought I'd make one, because I like the boss. Well, that's about it. Have a nice rest of your guys' day. See you.